Hey Sugar Snaps, welcome to the Textile Indie YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Brittany. If you're an old friend, welcome back. Today I have a quick tutorial on crochet stitches. I'm going to be sharing some crochet projects, so I wanted to give you the groundwork of the different crochet stitches and how to do them. So let's dive in. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using this cream, sugars and cream yarn and a size F crochet hook. So the first technique I'm going to show you is how to create a slip knot. So if you take your ball of yarn and you pull some yarn from that, you're going to have a tail. And that tail we're going to send towards the left. Then we're going to loop around and over that piece of yarn so that the end coming from the wall overlaps on top. And then slide this over so that it sits on top of this end. I'm going to grab this loop that's underneath and pull on both ends, and now I just created a little slip knot that I can slide my hook through and start to crochet. Now another way to do a slip knot that I usually do when I'm getting started is lay this over my hand, loop it up and around, and then send this end, create a little loop, send it through, grab that, grab the toe tails and pull tight. So again, what that looks like is looping it around my hand so I have it all the way around. And then if you grab the yarn like this, tuck it under the loop on your hand and then hold on to that same loop and then tighten both ends. You can pull tight and then adjust snugly over the hook, like so. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to complete a chain because it's the foundation of all of our crochet. So once you have the slip knot slid onto your crochet hook and it slides freely so that it's not super tight, you don't want it so tight that it's hard to move. You want to have a little bit of looseness. You also need the hook to be able to slide through that space, so a little bit of looseness is great. Now I'm going to yarn over the hook and then catch that yarn with the hook and pull through this loop like so. Again, yarn over, so I'm bringing the yarn up, around, and over the hook and then pulling this yarn through the loop like so. And now we've just completed 2 chains. Each of these little V-shaped pieces here is 1 chain. So I'm going to chain 15 so that I can start a little sample for the next stitch I show you. So go ahead and chain until you feel comfortable. It's good to practice this because when you have built a lot of chains, you can start to control the size or gauge the size of the chain that you need and how much space you need in this loop on the hook to be able to slide through easily. If you pull too tight on this loop that's on the hook and you loop around, it's going to be really hard to get this through, and then it'll be really hard to do stitches in that space later on. So having kind of a loose chain is actually going to help you out in the long run. So I'm going to count these chains. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So I wanted 15 chains, but I'm actually going to leave that 16th chain so that we have it ready for our next stitch. Okay, next up we have the slip stitch. A slip stitch goes into this chain foundation. So I have 15 chains across and then I did a 16th chain so I can turn my work. So here what I'll do is skip this first chain. We're not going to do anything to that chain. I'm going to take the end of my hook, slide it into the top of this next chain in line, and I'm just catching that one loop. Yarn over the hook, so just laying it on top of the hook, and then catch that yarn. We're going to slide through the chain and then also slide through the yarn on the hook. So that's our first slip stitch. So now again, I'm going to go into the next chain over. So grab the top loop here, yarn over, pull through that top loop and through the chain or the loop that's on the hook, like so. That's slip stitch number 2. We're going to keep going across, slide through the chain loop and through the loop on the hook, and then create a new stitch in the next chain. We're going across, and you can see a little bit of fabric forming here as you work. This first row, it's going to not look like much because slip stitch grows rather slowly. It makes a really dense fabric, but it grows slowly. So we'll go across, and I'll show you the next rows and then show you a finished swatch. Okay, when you've done a slip stitch in that final space, that final chain, you're going to chain one to turn, which means that you chain, and then we were working in this direction. Now I'm going to flip this work over like so. We're going to work in this direction. So now you have 2 loops on the top of the fabric here, and if you take it from the side, it looks like this. If you look at it from the top, you see you have your chain-like pattern on the top, and then this is the other side. So I'm going to come in, I've created a chain on the end. My next space, I'm going to catch the 2 chain loops, so I'm catching 2 of those there. So it looks like this from the side, this from the top, and this is the side. Now yarn over, so I'm laying the yarn on top. I'm going to pull through those 2 loops and then also through the loop that's already on the hook. So again, catch these 2 loops that are on top. Yarn over, pull through those loops and through the loop that's on the hook. Again, these 2 loops here, catch with your hook, yarn over, and pull through. We'll do this same stitch all the way across, making sure to catch both loops and not split the yarn. If you accidentally split the yarn, it can look messy. So try to keep all the loops of the yarn on your hook as you transition. And this second row might feel a little bit awkward because you're still trying to build some fabric bulk. So keep working across, going into that edge like so. So here is a small slip stitch sample. You can see the fabric is really dense. So this stitch is great for things that you need a thick fabric or edge on a piece. Your pattern will specify any details about how to use slip stitch, whether you're using it to carry the yarn over a section or just create a stripe in your work and then working in single crochet or one of the other crochet stitches in between. But the next stitch I'm going to show you is single crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 15. Okay, and now for single crochet, I'm going to chain 1 on the end, send my hook through the top of this loop. I'm going to skip the first chain and go into this next chain, 1 over, yarn over, pull through the first loop, and then yarn over again and pull through those 2 loops. So what that looks like, well, again, is sending the hook through the top of the chain, catching that loop, yarn over, so I'm just setting the yarn on top, pulling this through that first loop, and now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over again, so I end up with 3 loops on my hook, and then pull this yarn through both loops like so. And this is your single crochet. So again, through the next chain, yarn over, pull through. Now you have 2 loops like so. Yarn over again, pull through both of those chains. And you end up creating this little V shape on the side of the fabric. So again, I'll slide my hook through, pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through the next 2. We'll do that all the way across. And then I'll do a last stitch in this last chain here. Pull through the first loop, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. And now chain 1, turn your work, and this is what the back side looks like. Front side looks like this. So we've turned the work. Now we're going to work from right to left once again. So come in, catch both the loops on the top here. I'm going to catch both of these, yarn over and pull through both of those loops. So this space right here, this is the space we're going into. So send your hook through those, or under those loops through that space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, pull through the 2 loops on your hook. So then this next space here is right there. If you pull your work apart, you can see a little space created right there. I'm going to send my hook into that space, catch the yarn and loop through, yarn over, and then send that through those 2. And you can see this stitch compared to the slip stitch is already creating more fabric in a shorter amount of time, a shorter number of rows. We're almost to the same width of my first sample with only 2 rows, and this sample is about 5 rows of slip stitch. So you can see how different crochet stitches grow at different rates as far as the height of the row goes. So you continue stitching a single crochet into each space where that original chain was, or the last row of stitching happened. So again, if you pull your work apart a little bit, pull on each end, spaces start to appear. You'll send your hook into that space, catch the 2 loops on the top of the work, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops. I'm going to go to the end of this row and then show you the turn once again. Now here, this last stitch sometimes is kind of at an angle down, so make sure to catch all of both of those loops. Don't split your yarn. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops. Now we're going to chain 1 on the end here. So this is the side we just completed. Now I'll flip this over and we're working from the other side. And that is the first 2 rows of our single crochet. And here is a sample of single crochet. This is a 4x4 inch swatch. And it's really helpful to have swatches around so that you can reference them when you're working on a project. If you're designing something yourself, you can reference this to kind of get an idea of what it would look like. Or if you're following a pattern, you can see how this plays up. You usually make a sample swatch from the specific yarn that you're using for a project to do a gauge swatch and things, but I like to have this sort of thing in my studio just to reference when I'm working on a project. So the way you would count these rows is this is row 1, this is row 2, this is row 3, row 4, row 5. So if you look at these sections and you see these little V shapes here, this is row number 1. And now if you bounce up, you see a little row of these kind of horizontal stripes or little bubbles. That's row 2. And then above it is a row of little V's again, and then little bubbles, and then little V's, little bubbles, little V's. That is the way that I think about it when I'm counting rows. You can also look at these little indents in here, and each of those indents occurs after 2 rows. So I have 1 row at the bottom, and then I have an indent here, so that's 2 and 3, and then an indent 4 and 5, and then an indent 6 and 7, and so on. So that is the texture and the look of the single crochet. Okay, the next stitch I'm going to show you is double crochet. So I've added 2 chains to the end of my swatch my chain section here. Those 2 chains allow us to turn and build enough height so that we can do double crochet. So skip those first 2 chains. Now we're going to start out with the yarn over. So before you even go through a chain, yarn over once and then send your hook through the 3rd chain over. So 1, 2, and 3. Yarn over again, pull this first yarn or this yarn over here through the chain loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through the last 2. So again, what that looks like is yarning over first, sending your hook through the chain, the top of that chain section, yarn over by setting the yarn on top of the hook, pull this first loop through the chain, make your loop nice and loose so that you can work with it. Don't pull it super tight. Give it some ease. Yarn over again. Now we're going to go through this loop and this loop, the 2 loops that are first on the hook. So we're going to pull this yarn through those 2 loops and then yarn over again and go through these last 2 loops. So those last 2. Okay, so now we have 2 double crochets, and on the end here, these chain 2 act as a double crochet. They just give us the added height that we needed to turn the other direction. So yarn over, go into the next chain, yarn over and pull through the chain stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. There is your double crochet, and it's like a little post that sticks up in your fabric. So yarn over, through the chain, yarn over, pull through that chain, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, like so. Yarn over, go through the chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Do a double crochet in that last chain, and then we're going to chain 2 on the end of that row and then turn the work. So this is the side we were working across, turn it over. Now we're going to work across again. So yarn over, and now like we did in the single crochet, if you spread your work apart a little bit, right up here there's going to be little spaces, and if you can see that in there, that's a space, this is a space, this is a space. So if you yarn over and take your hook right into that space, so you're catching, going through and catching 2 loops there, the 2 upper portions of your previous double crochet, then yarn over, catch this and go through those 2 loops. We'll treat it as 1, and then yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2, like so. And then again, yarn over. This space right here, we're going to make room, send the hook through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, go through 2, like so. And we'll do that all the way across once again. Each time you come to the end of a row, make sure to chain 2 and turn so that you have enough height that when you start your next stitch, you have something to work the edge. If you don't chain 2, you end up kind of crushing this first stitch down and it'll end up at an angle or pulled down. The chaining 2 allows for a nice straight edge. Here is a sample of the double crochet. You can see compared to the single crochet, it's much more open. There's a lot of space in between stitches and it will be a lot more breathable. So here is the comparison of single crochet to double crochet. And when you look at double crochet, the way you count these rows is each space or each row here of post is a row of stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And the way I'm looking at that is if you look closely, there's a row of little bubbles here, and then this row is kind of straight. These are 2 separate rows. So then again, up here, there's a little row of bubbles, and a row of straight. These are 2 separate rows. So this segment right here is 2 rows. We have this row and then this row, and then this segment right here is 2 rows, this section and this section. You may not see it that way, or that might not help you, but as you're stitching, you'll start to get a feel for seeing what a stitch looks like and what a section looks like, and be able to differentiate between the rows. The next stitch I'm going to show you is the triple or treble crochet. So when you've chained 15, chain 3 more on the end. So like we chained 2 for the double crochet, for triple crochet we need 3 to be able to turn. So we're going to be stitching into this 4th chain over. So for triple crochet, we're going to yarn over twice and then count 3 chains over and go into the 4th chain. Yarn over again, pull through the chain loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And the reason it's called triple crochet is because we do that 3 times. We've yarned over twice, but once we go through the chain, we have 1 yarn over and pull through, 2 yarn over, pull through, and 3 yarn over to pull through those last loops. So triple crochet because we do that yarn over and pull through 3 times. So again, yarn over twice, find your next chain space, send your hook through, yarn over, pull this loop through, and then yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. So your triple crochet are a little bit taller than the double crochet. So we'll continue working this all the way across till we reach the end, and we'll turn and chain 3. Here's my first row of triple crochet. At the end here, I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn my work, and then again yarn over twice, go into the next space and do your triple crochet. And make sure, especially with this triple crochet, that your yarn doesn't split. There's a lot going on here, so it can be easy to split the yarn as you're going through all these loops. Here is the triple crochet swatch. This one's even more open than the double crochet, and it's a lot easier to count the rows because you have more of a solid section between each row here. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So here are my little swatches. I have the slip stitch, which I didn't do a very big swatch of because it was fairly slow to crochet this and I got bored. Then we have the single crochet. It's a bit denser. You can still see through it, but the fabric has a nice dense texture. Then we have double crochet. It's a little more airy. And then we have triple crochet, which has even more spaces in the structure. So those are 4 basic stitches in crochet. You'll see these come up in crochet patterns often. So knowing them and having them in your repertoire is really helpful to keep you going as you read your crochet patterns. Well, there are the 4 basic stitches. There are more in crochet, but these are kind of the foundation stitches that you work in crochet. And it's really handy to have swatches nearby as you're working so you can reference them and kind of get an idea of what they look like. I like having them in the natural color because then it's easier to see the stitches. Darker, it's a little bit harder, trickier to see those stitches, especially if you're in a dim light, and color kind of pulls away from the texture of the material itself. So having it in kind of a neutral color, and I like doing it in the cotton yarn because the cotton structure gives a nice crisp stitch definition, so you can see the definition of each stitch that you do. So if you want to make samples like these, I use the sugar and cream cotton yarn in natural and crocheted a 4x4-inch swatch. So 15 stitches or 15 chains across with the additional chains depending on the stitch. I hope you feel empowered to try crochet patterns now with your new stitch library or experience and dive into doing some crochet projects. I will be posting some crochet projects throughout the spring and summer, so be sure to check back for those. If you haven't already, sign up for my email update list. I have a QR code here and a link in the description below. I send out a twice a month email with all the content that we've lately put out for Textile Indie on the YouTube channel, the website, social media, that kind of thing. And we also share any discount codes for our shop or other shops that we work with if we have one at that time. So check those links out here or down below to sign up for that. Thanks so much for joining me in this quick tutorial. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm excited to do more crochet projects with you in the future. Until next time, happy making.